guys, what is going on? Welcome back and welcome to a new video. I wanted to start off this video by talking about parasite cleansing. I know that I talked about this in a recent video, but I kind of just wanted to touch up on it really quickly because I wanted to give you guys kind of a rundown on what to expect if you start doing parasite cleansing. You can run into a whole host of benefits, but more often than not, it comes with a little bit of trauma at first. When you start kicking these creatures out of your systems, you can feel fatigued. You can suddenly have bloating. You can have weird cravings for a handful of things. Sometimes when people, believe it or not, when they start cleansing parasites, they might have strong cravings for alcohol, for tobacco, even if they've, don't even smoke tobacco or drink alcohol. Very strange things can happen as these parasites get killed in your system, in your alimentary tract, in your blood, in your organs, you name it. They can create all sorts of weird byproducts, waste byproducts. This is known as a Herxheimer reaction, also known as Herxheimer syndrome. It's based off of, I believe, the man who, his last name was Herxheimer. He discovered this, that when certain things die off in your system, they can put off a toxic byproduct which can make you ill and can even be rather dangerous if, for instance, certain things put off too much waste. But typically speaking, parasites aren't going to be able to put off enough waste to really harm you. They're just going to make you feel kind of weird for a while, more often than not. It doesn't always happen, and if you use if you use the right cleanse, it's probably not going to create too many negative symptoms, and the benefits far outreach the negatives. So a little bit of discomfort for a whole lot of range of motion and freedom and peace of mind and just better health, that is well worth it, ladies and gentlemen. So I showed you guys in yesterday's video the particular cleanse that I currently condone. It's filled full of black walnut hulls. It's got some quassia bark in it, some ginger, some grapeseed extract, a handful of very potent natural anti-parasitic herbs that have been used for hundreds of years by our ancestors to ward off these foreign invaders. And these foreign invaders, ladies and gentlemen, are the quintessential true aliens. The real aliens don't come from out there. Well, technically they do, because they get into our systems from external sources, but the real aliens, the real mind control aliens, ladies and gentlemen, are the parasites that live within our systems, that go unnoticed for years, that create hundreds, if not thousands, of negative health reactions, such as, but not limited to, mental disorders, depression, strange food cravings, sugar cravings, suicidal thought. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I'm not going to give you guys an entire breakdown of all the symptoms. You would be surprised, however, at how many people's health issues are related to some type of invader blood sucking on them like a vampire. But when you go to the doctor, they're not going to tell you about this. They're going to find a symptom and they're going to treat your monkey ass with a pill, most likely, that has a handful of different side effects that sometimes you have to take other medications to counteract the side effects from the medication that you're taking. And so the wheel turns, ladies and gentlemen. So as I said in recent videos, I don't put a huge emphasis on parasite cleansing anymore like I used to, because I've seen how people react to those messages, and I've seen people take my messages and do really strange things that I've never condoned based on what I've said. It's like, for some reason, people in the past thought, since I recommended parasite cleansing, that they should use things like turpentine and all this other nonsense. No, I've never recommended that, ever. I'm not even recommending that you do what I do. And I do, for the most part, an annual parasite cleanse. I mean, you annually deworm your pets, do you not? You annually deworm your cats, do you not? Farmers deworm their cows. I mean, for some reason, we think in our stupidity that we don't get parasites. If your dog has a parasite and it lays on your bed with you, if your dog has a parasite and it lives in your home, there's a 99.999% chance, I'd call it 100% chance, that you have those same parasites, ladies and gentlemen. But for some reason, we've been hoodwinked into thinking that parasites only exist in third world countries, and if you live in the United States or a relatively wealthy area, you can't get parasites because in your area you have good health care and things seem so sanitary. No, I've seen people cut open fish from a store and pull out 6 feet of tapeworm. I've seen this on a handful of occasions. In fact, a good friend of mine about 2 years ago went to Costco and was looking for some salmon and found a piece of salmon. And when he went to reach down for it, there was a worm moving through the salmon. So he took his phone out, filmed it. It was like a 25-second clip, sent it to me, and decided to throw it online. And it went viral like that. I think it got 100,000 views in one day. Shit you not. 100,000 views. It's like my lighting's gonna... Let's try to turn my lighting up, you guys. I'm trying to compensate for the sun so I don't look like a ghoul in the poor lighting. It went viral. A news corporation somehow found it, contacted him through his contact information, and asked him if he would be willing to share or let them use his piece of information on the news. He said no, and they used it anyways. And it created this whole little scandal lasted about a week and a half. Now Costco reached out to him and said that this is normal, blah, 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 you can't do anything about it. It was just ridiculous. So this happens all the time, especially at Costco's. You know, if you look around, you're pretty much guaranteed if you go into Costco and look around a little bit, you'll find a piece of fish with a fucking worm in it. It is indeed natural. This is what happens with the flesh of animals, especially when they're in the ocean. Bodies of water are incredibly polluted. But, you know, just because you're eating fruits and vegetables doesn't mean that you don't get parasites. In fact, if you look into the research of Dr. Hulda Clark, who is a naturopath who wrote multiple books, really changed the world with her health information. If you look through her books, if you listen to her speak, some of her audio uploads and whatnot, she goes on to show that a large majority of the parasites that people get in their systems come from fruit, come from vegetation, come from vegetables, especially the fruit skin. So, I mean, think about it. There's so many parasites on produce that they have to spray everything with pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, larvicides, insecticides, parasitics, excuse me. And on top of that, a lot of this stuff is handled really weird by people. I mean, for instance, we know that there's been a handful of scandals of people urinating on produce, defecating on produce, these strange, deranged workers who do weird things to food before it gets sent out. And yeah, it gets washed and whatnot, more often than not always, but it's not good enough. So you have parasites if you're watching this. I would pretty much guarantee that you do. And there's a handful of ways. I think that I've kind of had a scattered message over the years because I've been weird about parasite cleansing because I'm weird about preaching it because I know how it can be taken out of context and taken to the extremes. Because many people, when they start seeing the stuff come out of their body in the toilet, when they start seeing the worms, when they start kicking this stuff out of their systems, they can go totally neurotic, and it can really, really drastically reduce your quality of life if you don't stay mentally strong. And people, suddenly, when they start seeing worms come out, instead of just staying on the human worm or the Living Defense Plus, they suddenly want to start taking turpentine or go into these crazy directions. With parasite cleansing, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about slow and steady wins the race. This should not be something that you get obsessed with, and it's very easy to get obsessed with when you start seeing these creatures come out of your system. Because it leads to this weird complex where it's like, oh, I'm possessed, I'm nasty, I need to get all this stuff out of my system. So instead of you going slow and steady and staying mentally strong, oftentimes people will try to go from point A to point B like that, and that leads to serious issues. You should not be putting turpentine in your system. You should not be using all of these crazy constituents. When it comes to parasites, ladies and gentlemen, there's two options of the best options in my opinion, which are herbs and in some situations pharmaceuticals. But I think that the herbs are the best bet. The black walnut hulls, the cloves, the wormwood, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Hulda Clark has some great cleanses out there. But the Living Defense Plus, ladies and gentlemen, and the human worm are your best bets. And at this point in my life, I think that the Living Defense Plus is your best bet because it is the most gentle. It doesn't create all of the Herxheimer syndrome reactions. It makes you feel good. It's just an all-around great product, and everything is sourced well. It's all organic. I think there's 2 ingredients in there that aren't organic, but you know what? For what it's worth, it is an incredible product at a low price. I don't get any money from that company from saying what I'm saying about them. I just believe in the power of it. I've gone through, I think, 4 or 5 bottles in the past. Have I? I'm not sure how many I've gone through. Maybe 3. I think I have some on auto ship, excuse me. But I've used it enough to know. I've used it at least, I think 3 times. I might be on my 4th bottle right now. I'm not 100% sure, because when I use my bottles, I toss them out. I don't keep all of my supplement bottles. So I don't know how many times I've used it, but pretty much every year I do at least 1 parasite cleanse, and you'd be surprised at how much better you're going to feel when you get these aliens out of your system. There are people who are sensitive to this kind of thing, and maybe they should just stick to diet and not worry about parasite cleansing. But I think that, how would I say it? I just started saying that I've had kind of a mixed message about parasite cleansing because of how I've seen people overdo it. And because of that, I've kind of laid low about it, and even kind of mentioned how parasites can be good to some extent, and how I don't really condone it anymore. I do condone it, it's just not the way that I used to condone it. I hope that makes sense. And I do believe that some parasites are actually good for you. You're not supposed to just walk around without any bacteria or any microbes or anything, just everything's deleted. No, that's not how nature is designed. It's when you start getting an overabundance of these critters that you run into problems, especially mental issues, ladies and gentlemen. I've put people on parasite cleanses before where afterwards their clarity, their confidence is in a much better place than it was prior. And mental illness, ladies and gentlemen, especially here, within the last 15, 20 years, it's gotten really bad. So, parasites, getting the stuff out of your blood, ladies and gentlemen. Your blood is borrowed. It's used by creatures. So, you know, if you think about all the times you've eaten out, you might have been exposed to sick people who have these things. I mean, nowadays all you need to do to get a tapeworm is touch a dirty doorknob. Believe it or not. So, cleansing the alimentary tract, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is where all of your nutrients are absorbed. Not all of them, but to a large extent, most of your nutrients are absorbed from the tubing from your mouth to your anus. And if that tubing is filled full of junk, bacteria, waste products, pathogens, parasites, you're not going to be absorbing your nutrients properly. And this is kind of what I want to dovetail into the next section. Get rid of that stuff, you'll clear up your tubing, and then you'll be able to absorb more nutrients. You see, just eating a bunch of health food isn't going to guarantee that you absorb your nutrients. If your nutrient absorption channels are plugged and used by other creatures that are feeding on your nutrients, you simply get their waste products or what they don't consume. And if you don't believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, look up the tapeworm diet. I believe they still do this in certain parts of the world. I'm pretty sure you can still order from different countries tapeworm eggs that come in a gelatin capsule. You swallow it, it hatches in your system, it starts growing, and then it starts eating all of the food that you eat. Not all of it, but a large majority of it. Many people got into this in the last, I think this was big in like the 1950s through the 1970s. Might have been earlier than that. I'm not 100% sure, and I'm pretty sure this still goes on. It's called the tapeworm diet, where you intentionally put a tapeworm in your system so that you can eat whatever the hell you want. And people who have a lot of parasites, especially the larger parasites like the tapeworms, which grow a foot a year, ladies and gentlemen. They can get up to 40 feet or longer. But many people who have these, they can eat massive amounts of food without gaining weight. It's because you have the aliens inside of your system feeding on you. And what's crazy is that if you read a book called Parasite Rex, there's also a good book called Parasites, Look What Came to Dinner. There's a handful of them on the market. You'll notice, ladies and gentlemen, what the hell was I going with that? Had a total brain fart, excuse me. Where the hell was I going with that? This is like the second hour of video production today, so forgive me for being a little scatterbrained. But that's what I was going to say. If you read those books, you'll come to find that parasites, once they get into their host, the organism that they want to live in, they learn to hijack its consciousness, kind of like the little creatures in Independence Day with Will Smith, how the alien has an alien inside of its head that controls it. That's what the aliens are, the real aliens, the parasites, the body snatchers, ladies and gentlemen. That is what they do to you when you get them inside of your system. Now, like I said, there's a delicate balance here, and you need some degree of parasites in your system. That is how nature designed us, at least in my opinion. But when you get an overabundance of these parasites competing with one another and using your body as a literal hotel, you have a serious issue. You have a serious problem. We know through the work of Dr. Hulda Clark that simply by doing a deep parasite cleanse, you can reverse a ton of health ailments. And oftentimes, and this is something that she really pioneered, she showed, ladies and gentlemen, that parasites are directly related to many issues that doctors assume aren't related to parasites. And by getting rid of the parasites, by cleaning your alimentary tract, by cleansing your blood, by zapping all of the crap out of your system, you can start to regain your health. You can start to regain your health. You can start to regain your health. Third time's the charm. And who doesn't want health? You have to have health in this matrix. Your health is your armor shield. Without health, you are fucked. This system will eat you alive, especially, ladies and gentlemen, if you are on the path to gnosis, to trying to raise the kundalini. These parasites will invade you, set up shop, and control you. And that's why so many well-meaning people have so many food cravings and they can't get their diets dialed in, and they're just out of control with their cravings. You got a bunch of stuff inside of you sending false signals to the regions of your brain that are associated with appetite. So, sugar cravings, what I've found with clients, with myself, you name it, they can be greatly nullified or even deleted by getting the black walnut hull back into your system. And what works best is a blend. You can just take isolated black walnut hull. Dr. Hulda Clark did this for, even though she's passed away, her clinic still does this. But what I find is best is that if you make a powerful blend of anti-parasitic herbs that have a synergistic effect with one another, that way you can get from point A to point B a little bit quicker. Not too quick, but quicker. And sometimes that's a very beneficial thing, but going too quick with this can cause serious issues. It's kind of like people who go too quickly with heavy metal detox, ladies and gentlemen. If you think parasite cleansing is one thing, metal detox is a completely different beast. It is much more difficult. Because metal detox is heavy metal detox, ladies and gentlemen. When you start removing these metals from, the organ of choice, such as aluminum from the brain, it goes through your system and makes you feel like you are out of your fucking mind. And many people, I'm amazed at how dangerously people handle heavy metal detox. They'll just start taking massive amounts of cilantro. I've told you guys for years that if you're going to do heavy metal detox, you better do some research. You better take binders as well, so that when you do unlodge those metals, for instance, like the aluminum in your brain, when it gets released from your system, it needs somewhere to go. And if you don't have something to bind to it, it'll just go into a different organ system. And this is how you go out of your mind when you're doing metal detoxes. This is why so many people who do all these detoxes look like absolute hell. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, with all of the aluminum everywhere, with all of the strontium, barium, aluminum, scalar waves, mylar fibers, chaff, all of the different radioactive isotopes and metal compounds and particuli in the atmosphere through the stratospheric aerosol injection programs, also known as geoengineering or SAI. This is what most people call chemtrails. Because there is so much metal in the atmosphere at this point, I don't even recommend direct metal detox, because what you're going to do is you're going to unlodge all of these metals and you're just going to reabsorb it by default by breathing. I do, however, recommend consistent use of things like spirulina, consistent use of things like Phanerosomenum philosophica blue-green algae, consistent usage of the medicinal mushrooms, and a handful of other nutrient compounds that will naturally help your body be able to deal with and cope with the onslaught of excessive metal exposure. So, I mean, detoxing heavy metals in a world laden with heavy metals is ridiculous. And for some reason, when I try to tell this to people, they just don't want to believe me. And so many people that I've worked with, it's like I'll literally say, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, don't do heavy metal detoxes, and they still want to do it. It's like, you're free to do what you want, but I'm going to tell you what it's, you know, the truth before you continue doing this. We live in a world saturated with metals. And when you delete metals, you just shuttle more in. And your body can reach kind of a homeostasis with metals. And if you, I don't even want to say that. So obviously there's a point where you can have way too much metal in your system and you need to get some of it out. And you can use chelating things like even turmeric. You can get rid of, help get rid of iron. You can do blood donations, even though I don't do that. You can donate blood to get rid of excessive iron. There's ways to mitigate metal exposure, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm ready. Check out the, look at these trees around me, you guys. Beautiful. Doing my morning grounding. Let the sunlight into my eyes. It's crucial that in the morning you let some sunlight into your eyes. Midday you let some sunlight into your eyes, and before the sun goes down. This will help retune your brain to the seasonal swing of the solar and lunar cycles. This will help your circadian rhythm get back in track with the natural progression in light cycles of Earth. This will help you fall asleep quicker, and I sure as hell hope, not to be redundant and be repetitive, but I sure as hell hope you're wearing the blue blocking sunglasses. Not 2 hours after the sun went down, not 1 hour after the sun went down. When the sun goes down, you put the blue blocking UVX Skypers on so that you can start to spike your melatonin levels, balance out your prolactin, get your neurotransmitters and all of your other hormones in check so that you can get good sleep, so that you can, again, spike your melatonin, so that you can have regenerative sleep, so that you can start getting your sanity back here in the underworld, where most people are. It's amazing. Most people look like, ladies and gentlemen, and resemble full-fledged bloody zombies. And to a large extent, it's because their bodies are polluted, their minds are polluted, they eat crap, and they are literally the byproducts of toxic light syndrome, also known as TLS. This is something that I coined years ago. When you're exposed to excessive amounts of light, ladies and gentlemen, especially late into the evening, the light goes into your eye, tells your brain not to produce melatonin properly. It fucks up your prolactin, all of your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your organs, your glands, your temporal lobes, everything. And the byproduct of doing that to your brain and your body and your circadian rhythms and your rest cycles, the byproduct of doing this by exposing yourself to lighting for years, late into the evening, puts you into a state known as toxic light syndrome, TLS. And it is very easy to see this on people. It is very easy to sniff it out. This is why people need so much caffeine to get through the day, ladies and gentlemen. This is why people are so jittery. This is why people are doing such insane shit here in this matrix. It's because they're not rested at all. And when you're not rested, your system does not work properly in the same way that a phone that doesn't have full charge isn't able to function the way that it could if it was charged fully. When you are malnourished, underrested, and overexposed to nonsense and all the mind control and the bullshit here, you go insane. So get your daily grounding, 15 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes midday, 15 minutes at night. Ground yourself while the sun is coming up in the east, and let some of that sun into your eyes. Go outside midday if you can with your shoes off. Put your feet barefoot on the ground like I'm doing now, and let some sun come into your eyes. I'm not telling you to look directly at it, just be outside. You can also sun gaze at high noon, ladies and gentlemen, by going underneath a well-covered tree with a lot of leaves, you can stand underneath the leaves and move yourself so that the light, when it comes through the leaves, gets diffused and broken up so it's not as intense, so you can let it into your eyeballs. And finally, when the sun goes down, the last 15 minutes, go outside, ground yourself, grab your UVX Skyper blue blockers, and once that sun goes all the way down and you can't see it anymore, and once twilight is over and the world becomes enshrouded in darkness, throw those blue blockers on and leave them on until you go to sleep. Make sure that if you live in a house where your bedroom or wherever you sleep has light in it, get curtains, take electrical tape and put it over routers or devices that put off any amount of light. Excuse me. Make it so that your wherever you sleep is a sleep regeneration chamber. You might even do well to get a humidifier. You might even, ladies and gentlemen, do well to get a weighted blanket. You might even do well to get yourself something. One thing, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. One thing that you can do, ladies and gentlemen, if you sleep poorly, is lower the temperature in your bedroom or wherever you're sleeping, or your home. Turn the air down. You will fall asleep much quicker if it's colder. If you have to wrap yourself in a blanket to stay warm and the environment around you is cold, you will fall asleep much quicker. That's why the chillo exists, ladies and gentlemen, the chilled pillow. That is why the weighted blankets that you can plug in that cool you down, although I don't recommend those. Weighted blankets are awesome, but not an electric one. Even the chillos, I know people have great success with those, but I don't necessarily recommend them, even though I just mentioned them. But again, lowering the temperature just helps you fall asleep better. Because if it's hot out, and it's like you toss and turn so much more. So anyways, you guys, I wanted to show you something. Should I show you? This right here, you guys, is, I don't even know if you can see that. Let's see if I can turn let's see. You can see it, my nose, that's gross. I wanted to personally thank you for watching my videos and contributing to the growth of my channel. I could not do this without you, and your interest in my content is truly what motivates me and fuels my passion for making these videos and spreading my message. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I wanted to remind you that this channel is a free educational tool that is listener supported, and if you would like to donate to my channel and donate to my cause, help make my life a little bit easier and help keep the lights on around here, you can do so by checking out the links in the description box below. There's a handful of not only ways to donate to my channel, but I also have links to different websites and different videos of mine, as well as my Amazon store, where you can check out a plethora of different health-related products that I use and recommend. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your continued interest in my message, and until next time, peace be with you all.